we've got the hackerpreneur himself. This is a fun one, aka Justin Wu. This man has done it all from startups to Ecomm to Pokemon cards to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, speaking on stages around the world with the likes of Larry King and many other billionaires and influential people. Today we go into lots of incredible fun things with marketing, with growth hacking, and being very data driven. Now we also have a teaser, which is really great. What we're loving right now is NFTs, cryptocurrencies, and the direction that those are going. We've got a teaser at the end here of this episode you're not going to want to miss out, where we're going to be diving into a lot of that as well. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. If you haven't left a written review down below, go ahead and do that. Share with a friend. Let us know in the comments what you think. We're excited to continue to bring on more incredible people like Justin, and the episodes coming in the coming weeks are just as incredible. Let's go ahead and get into it, guys.
Happy to be on the podcast and kind of share my background. I've been a growth marketer for, I'd say, 12 plus years. Really started out in the early days, kind of like middle school to high school, just building out kind of my own different websites and platforms, actually selling Pokemon cards. So kind of hustled through Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh! I should have just went all in on Pokemon cards, because apparently Charizard is popping off. So with like $20,000, $30,000.
We'll definitely spend some time on
cards.
Pokemon cards this episode. I want to know your entire take on this whole Pokemon market, because I am fascinated.
Yeah, I actually have some opinions about that too, with the whole collectible stuff. Well, I'll talk about it a little bit later. But yeah, my background's just all been about marketing, internet marketing, and growth. I've jumped around from launching my own SaaS companies to messing around some e-commerce brands as a consultant, and as well as launching my own e-commerce. And then within the past 3 years, specifically I dropped everything and just went full in on blockchain, crypto, and fintech, and decentralized fintech, which is a lot of stuff to unpack. And I'll kind of share more about that a little bit later.
Here's a timely question, because I feel like this is something I struggle with every year around the holidays. So when you go to the family gathering and someone says to you, namely like your grandma, "Hey, Justin, so what do you do?" How do you break that down in a palatable way? Because I struggle with that.
Yeah, I think that the one-liner for me is just like, I help, I guess, companies build their brand, community, and ultimately just generate more sales and revenue. In the end of the day, marketing is bringing top-level awareness, but in the end of the day, it's just how much revenue or growth, whatever growth means for that company or business, does. That's kind of where I'm focused on helping them get to the next stage of their fundraising, their sales, their milestones, etc. I'm just really there to help accelerate brands and companies from the ground up.
So let's go back to the beginning and then kind of just walk down the journey chronologically. Then maybe we can unpack it as we go along. So you said you got started marketing, I guess, unofficially you said middle school, when you were doing Pokemon cards?
Yeah, that's like middle school. So it probably was like a little bit earlier than that, when I was just started to trade a lot of these like Pokemon cards, and it evolved into Yu-Gi-Oh cards and Magic cards even. How
did you incorporate a marketing strategy, and was that intentional?
Indirectly. So what ended up happening was I started to realize that there were websites early on like eBay and Craigslist, where I could buy cards online, which was a brand new concept back then, for much cheaper than going to like my local shop or my other friends. So then I started buying those cards, whether it be large sets, people just want to unload like, all their games or their card sets or decks, etc. So I saw these sets go for like $100 for like a stacks of cards, Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic. And then I realized that if I sold them out, broke it up individually, I can make money through arbitrage. So I was making money through just reselling to local other people on eBay, back on eBay, Craigslist. Then I decided to just like create my own website, my own kind of like trading card website on using forums back then. And by doing that, though, I started to learn that I could put Google ads on my website. And then that's when I started making my first internet money, I should say.
Jesus Christ, bro, you were still in middle school?
Yeah, so I'd say about middle
fuck was I
school.
doing in middle
So
school?
it was accidental. It was through I guess just me just being able to start spotting arbitrage early on, where that got me into seeing that there's opportunity where I could just buy low and sell high to different places and friends and local markets. And then once I started realizing that because I built a website and I had traffic to it, that I could add on Google AdSense on the website. Then I just started making like, $100, $200 extra every month based off the traffic. But what really blew my mind at that point, though, was there was these like fake, I wouldn't know they're fake, but there are all these like internet marketer gurus at that time. This is before Tai Lopez too. So showing off their Google AdSense checks, they're showing $10,000 a month. And I was like, how is this 16, 17, 18-year-old flashing this $10,000 check from Google? It has to be real, and there's something that has to happen in order to get to that stage. Then I just took the math and I was like, well, I was making already like $100, $200 a month based off my traffic. So I was like, I blew up the math a little bit more, and I was like, that's actually possible to make $10,000 plus a month just on AdSense if I increase my traffic. So then I just started spending most of my time after that just to try to increase my traffic through SEO. Not really social media back then. It was like maybe MySpace eventually as it grew. And then I just realized that I could make more money just through internet marketing. Then that got me down the whole rabbit hole of going beyond that, going beyond just like Pokemon cards, Magic cards, because the Google ads, you're getting paid out on the AdSense based on the quality of traffic and what kind of product you're pushing. And I realized that if I was just pushing Yu-Gi-Oh cards and Magic cards, it's not a big enough of industry for ads to give a lot of revenue. So then that pulled me back in another step where I was starting to realize, well, it doesn't really matter about my passion per se when it comes to internet marketing. If I could just find the right niches, the industries to generate the traffic and ads for, then at that point, that's when I just started jumping around different types of industries, from like real estate, loans, dating, like eHarmony was like paying $150 per sign up. Like
so you essentially became like an affiliate marketer type.
Well, it's like there's like affiliate, there was AdSense, there's just like this whole bunch of like different levels. There's email marketing. I just started getting down the rabbit hole of just like trying to find all these different offers and ways that people are paying for leads or traffic or CPM, cost per views as well too. So like that just opened up the branch of just me just going all in on it. And at that point though, I started Googling because at that, from high school over to college, I started applying to these different colleges and universities, and I realized that there was no degree for internet marketing at all. I was like, what's going on here? School hasn't caught up with what was happening in the internet, or the real world, I should say. So then,
what year was this?
This was like getting into like, I guess when I was like 2006. 2008 is when I graduated. So yeah, it's about almost 12 plus years ago when I realized that my university, when I applied to like University of Washington and these other places, they didn't even have. You go to the business school, they don't even have internet marketing. Marketing is just like the more like typical corporate marketing, or like working for like Microsoft marketing. And I was like, there's nothing going on here that talks about Google ads, email marketing, SEO, all these other things. And I was like, what's going on here? So I got accepted to University of Washington. And while I was sitting in class, I was just going on and just reading my online ebooks, other courses or other websites of just how to like do actual SEO and marketing. And simultaneously while I was doing that, my grades were taking a hit, obviously,
for sure.
While I was doing that. But what ended up happening though inadvertently was I was trying to get into computer science just because it was the hottest thing at that time, and still is right now. But
so at that point, you hadn't decided that marketing was like where you wanted your career to go. You were still looking at computer science.
Yeah, just because my family and like everybody's like, you got to be an engineer. You got to be an engineer. You got to work for Microsoft. My family members all work for Microsoft, Boeing, etc. So I was just like,
you're like, I want to flash $10,000 checks on the internet, Mom.
Yeah, and they're like, they were just trying to put me down that path, which was, it it's a good path, but it wasn't for me because I was just more interested in what was happening on the internet essentially, and I realized that I could get paid more than just a salary than to work for corporate life, depending what level you're working at. So that didn't really interest me as much to go through kind of the traditional like university school setting. But while I was doing that, I was kind of like computer science or information architecture at the University of Washington. I started to take some computer science classes, some sociology, psychology classes as well, some econ. I just took a lot of really intro level classes, but it was a whole mix of things around some econ and business, some comp sci, human studies or human behavior, and then kind of like precursor to like data science. It wasn't called data science back then. It was more like information architecture and information designs and information systems. I ended up finding out that those skill sets, learning how to just write Java, C++, web development, mobile development, lined up very well with marketing because marketing started to become much more technical and very data driven and data science heavy now. And that's when probably like junior year, the term kind of like growth hacker came out of San Francisco a little bit. Growth hacker came out where growth hacking is a buzzword and buzz term, but the real meaning of it is just being able to be an experimental marketer that is very data driven and using software, data, and marketing all together to execute your campaigns. And that's
so if I could repeat that back to you from the way I understood it, would you say a growth hacker is someone who's kind of just trying out new strategies that haven't really been tested yet in order to create like exponential results that haven't been seen?
I'd say running experiments very fast, being very data driven off of those experiments, and using software or technology to scale it in a way that has not been scalable previously. In like traditional marketing, meaning like back then, the way that you were scaling traditional marketing was through radio, print, TV. But with the internet kind of blowing up and the App Store and all these different devices, it's becoming much more technical, and you have to actually understand how these apps work, how the SaaS platforms work, in order to do better marketing, because marketing is becoming much more like software and product focused, I should say. And that's like a brand new skill set. Like again, like if you go again, that's where like the universities were still to this day outdated, where they don't really teach. If you go to study marketing, they won't teach you to become technical. They won't teach you data science or statistics as much. But if you go into the actual workplace now, if you even try to do marketing in some of these bigger corporations, they want you to have a little bit more data-driven background and even understand a little bit how to code, because you're going to have to code your own analytics platforms, all your different APIs and applications together to connect the dots across different apps, platforms, and teams. So that was like a brand new concept around like 2010 plus, where marketers used to just sit in their own silo. Developers just sit in their own silo. Customers always think they're right, and the data guys are always just in the background. Nobody's talking to each other. The marketer wants to communicate the product to the customer. The developer just wants to sit down and code. So there needs to be kind of a middleman person that talks to everybody, understands where everybody's priorities are at, and identify what is the high level objective of the business's growth goals, and then just draws a line through all those different departments on how to get there. And to me, that's kind of like how growth hacking and growth hackers should be or coming or are kind of like developed. And it's kind of this cross discipline of all those different aspects together. And I still don't think that there's like a proper degree for that. Maybe you might find that in like master programs a little bit, but it's always still a multi-team type of role that you see out there traditionally, even in some of the big companies and even startups.
So let's pretend that a degree has just been created right now on the dedication to excellence. I just made one available. And
Yeah.
as luck would have it, Justin, you are the professor of this course. So what are some of these fundamental skill sets? I mean, I know you talked a bit about coding, you talked about marketing. Like if I were somebody who wanted to follow in your footsteps, like what would you recommend? Because I mean, so I'm some context here. I actually helped start a tech company myself. And so as you're like talking to me right now, I'm like, this guy's fucking right. Like I wish that we would have more interchannel communication between like our product team and our sales team, because we are very siloed, especially in today's world, where the offices, we're all remote now, right? So I guess
Yep.
what I'm asking you is, what if you were to give me
Yeah.
a path, what would that look like?
Yeah, and this is like somebody who, even if you're like degree or you're just even self-studying, the path that at least I believe from my experience is taking just an intro level to I guess object-oriented programming, whether it be learning some Java or you actually get into actually Python is probably where I would actually with
Right.
today's industry, Python gets you so far from both like a data perspective and just like working applications. So I'd say start with just, you don't have to sit down and be a developer. Like I don't sit down and write code, but I understand how developers are approaching their product and their product design, so they understand what is possible and what's not possible. And I'm able to write like spec sheets. If I want like an idea for like a Shopify app, I can write what I need to the developers now from a marketing perspective, and talking their language, not the code again, just the structure of it, and then head it off to them, and then give it to a PM project manager to execute, or the lead developer. And then also too, you'll find that you get from understanding at least how development and the coding process works. You get a lot more respect from developers that are very, snooty at times, where like if you're not speaking their language, like they don't even want to mess with you. That's like because they
For
don't
sure.
you just think from the business side, you always think that developers are just like magically typing code and just spitting out like
Which they are.
products, which they are, but they can't do it like in a quick snap. So like I think that being able to just like understand and communicate in language and understand how the development process works will go pretty far away to getting at least a little bit more of your technical skill sets out. Another thing that has been kind of been super important is, in my opinion, studying UI and UX. So, user experiences,
Sure.
or human-centered design. Um, that's really important because the way that you build the website, the product, or even the way that you create your ad creatives evokes different feelings, colors, or a flow for your funnels and landing pages. And if you don't understand how to create the proper flows or landing pages or the proper copy, and understand how that impacts the users, then I think that your marketing campaigns will ultimately fall flat, especially if you're like funneling people to a bad landing page, your ad creative suck, your product doesn't work, or you have analytics kind of tracking all that behind the scenes. So I think that UI UX studies, this can be, you could just pick up a book, or just like look at um, other businesses and just dissect what they're doing, reverse engineering what they're doing. That's a good way to practice on that side of the skill set. And then what else? I'm always just a big fan of just getting into like a little more statistics and math. I think that, even if you hate math and statistics, you can't really run away from it, especially as a marketer. You're becoming much more data driven. And sometimes like you want to get a lot of insights from your past campaigns and your future campaigns to track how things are doing. And the way to experiment with it is to always to have a little more stats background and more technical math background, because marketing these days is the advantage is going to those that are very data driven and math heavy. They can easily identify which campaigns are not doing very poorly. Again, with like Facebook ads or like e-commerce stores, they can see what the traffic is or what's converting at X rate. So I think that that's like an underrated skill that I see a lot of marketers don't want to get a little bit more like on the math and stat side, which the kind of like industry is forcing them into.
Just a one-man tech company. This is great.
Yeah, well, I think that if you get to, it's just my opinion that if you're already seeing that there are new jobs and new degrees that are getting into like this cross blend of,
Mhm.
again, these multidiscipline schools. And usually, again, like you'll see it maybe in like master's or PhD level uh, uh, courses out there, which
Sure.
sucks because I don't think that it's besides like the university, they only teach you like max 2 years of whatever you're trying to get into, like whatever your degree is. And 2 years is not enough to actually like dabble and learn all those different comp sci, stats,
Mhm.
and math. But if you look at like the growth hacker or product marketer um, path, it mirrors very similar to what data scientists are going through now. Data scientists is
That makes sense.
a little bit variation of that, where data science is math stats, user or human, the consumer users, uh, the business side, and then comp side. And
Yeah.
that used to, again, not be a thing back then. And that's just been so in demand. And
Yep.
yeah, it is a unicorn skill sets that you have to kind of combine together. But the payout, if you look at the average pay for like a data scientist,
Yep.
it's in the 140 plus just starting,
Yep.
and it just climbs up even further. So it pays to kind of be a unicorn. Same thing with like a product marketer or head of growth or head of marketing, getting paid just as much as a data scientist or close. Data scientists will probably pull more ahead because they're much more technical in a way,
For
but
sure.
the payouts there are getting to that multidiscipline, and it really sets you apart in the marketplace and just as a skill set overall, because you can be this one kind of one man
One-stop
army, one
shop.
person army.
Yeah. For sure.
That
So
is
what
yeah,
as
hard to
you're
get into.
developing these skill sets in school, because bring it back to your college days, what was your first, like, I don't want to say real world application of all these skills, because you had been growth marketing, growth hacking yourself to that
Mhm.
point, but what was like your first big step after that, your next major accomplishment after that using these skills?
Yeah, yeah. So my first accomplishment was well, actually, I did drop out like on like near like right before my senior year with everything, but that was because I started doing marketing for car dealerships at that time. It was by accident. So during college and university, what I made up for on the business side was just actually going out there and just doing a lot of consulting for a lot of different businesses out there. So what I did was went on Craigslist, went to Indeed.com and all these different job posting sites, and I just said, hey. I found like marketing job listings and I just hit them up and just said I said yes to every single buddy, any type of business out there, even if I had no background in like real estate, car dealerships, gold and silver. Like I just started taking a lot of different consulting gigs to just do problem solving at that point, and get my experience in it. And if I couldn't do it, then I'll do it pro bono to start. But that was pretty much my way of how I was learning on somebody else's like ad spend and ad budget in a way, where
Right.
back then I didn't have a portfolio, right? And I had no experience doing marketing for car dealerships, but I found a small independent car dealership, and I just said, hey, you know what? Like I have a background in marketing. I would love. I saw that you were going to pay a couple $1,000s for marketing. Let me try it out. If it works, then I get paid. If I don't get work, then let's figure out how we can make it work.
Love it.
So it kind of put me in this position where I had to put my money where my mouth is, because if I said yes to something, I couldn't do it, and then I just don't get paid. But at the very least, though, I just started just jumping to any like very weird, like really weird industries, like left and right. Uh, that just pushed me outside my comfort zone, and that brought me back to what I was thinking back when I was doing again like AdSense marketing, where I was like, when I dropped the Pokemon cards and Yu-Gi-Oh cards, where like I don't need to be tied down to a single industry or niche if
Mhm.
I just understand how to
The
communicate to
principles.
customers, the principles of marketing.
Sure.
At that point, it doesn't really matter what industry or niche um, I had to be part of, as long as I just understand how SEO works,
Mhm.
how email marketing works, Then all I needed to understand is how the business wants to reach the customers and what do the customers want to the business. So it pulled me out of like this like view where I don't need to be like dedicated to like a single industry where I was jumping into like these different industries. Yeah, I was learning stuff in real estate and the automotive industry, etc. But I was just not like married to that industry to start, and that ended up.
Well, before we move forward, so what are some of
Yeah.
those fundamental principles of marketing that, in your experience, if you had to just kind of distill it down to a few points, like where are
Yeah.
businesses struggling the most these days, and what have you seen?
I definitely could break that down, especially from a lot of like trial and error. And I definitely and I like I'm not gonna lie, like even though I was taking a lot of different deals back then, I was like failing, but I was quickly learning as I go, and I was very transparent to like the businesses I was working with. But in the end of the day, I think that we're always so caught up as a marketer or a marketer learning how to market. We're so caught up in like these latest like social platforms out there like Clubhouse, TikTok, Snapchat. We're so caught up about the industry itself when what we need to really just focus on, in my opinion, is the internal funnel and the product. And then once you get that down, everything else is just an outbound external channel to try to go out and bring customers in. I think so much people are so focused on going outbound and trying to chase like the latest trends, and they don't have their like product or their funnel in place.
What do you mean
So
by
a lot of
internal funnel?
so like their own landing pages, like their own website, like if you're running like an e-commerce website, getting like your full Shopify funnel and checkout like super fast, super clean, before you actually go out and like study like TikTok and all these other different platforms out there. I think that because when you tell somebody to go learn marketing, they don't know where to start, and then they're like, okay, maybe I'll learn like the latest like trend or channel like Snapchat and Facebook ads and all these different things. And I was like, well, yeah, you could do that, go down that route, but like all those different channels are, in my opinion, a distraction. I think that what I've learned through like the past like 12 plus years is that a lot of growth is really like product driven and product led growth. If you don't have a good product and service, it's going to be very hard to
Sure.
market and grow. And it becomes very expensive as you start executing your marketing. What I mean by that is, let's say that you have a really bad website that has bad load times for like your Shopify website. People can't check out. Then if you're spending all your money on ads and TikTok and influencers,
Yeah, who cares if
then
you go viral?
who cares if you go viral? You're going to slam traffic to a dead wall, and you're burning you're burning cash, and you can't retain that traffic. So I've always like yeah. So like I'm always a big believer now that I think that the first thing that we always need to focus on is the product itself, whatever it is, whether it be your landing page, your website, your service. Once you got that kind of like really like tested and cleaned up and the experience and product is good to go, then I think that then you should just take a look at one channel at a time, whatever your competitors are going, and just spend one time, like let's say if you're like a B2B business, then just only spend one time on LinkedIn and just do LinkedIn for that whole month. And then go to like Google Ads and then YouTube. Then what ends up happening is you're just drilling down that whole platform, see what works, what doesn't work, and then just going out and just adding next to your like skill set stack. And at that point, now you're just like stacking all your skills over time for the different channels that can work for you. Instead of going out the traditional route, whether you are like a single founder, small startup team, or just a learning marketer, the mistake that I see is that we're just trying to like shotgun and do everything all at once, like go all like run TikTok ads, Facebook ads, SEO, email marketing, where it's very hard. Like you just have a massive switching cost of jumping all those different platforms without actually mastering it, and you'll never be good in any of those platforms unless you might be lucky if you go viral like on a certain platform. But there's just no process to your marketing or your marketing approach. And I think that that's, again, comes back to like the growth hacker mindset, where you just want to take one experiment at a time and move fast, of course, through it. But it's just very methodical now. You're just sitting down and pre-plan your channels and your marketing execution after you, again, like you build your funnel and your product, because everything will flow into that.
Sure. You don't want to slam them into a brick wall, like you just said.
Yeah, you don't want to slam to a brick wall unless your goal is to just build up your social media brand before you actually launch your product, which is a different strategy as well too. But that's kind of like my always starting advice to everybody else out there is just first be good at understanding your inbound funnel. And usually when you start looking at inbound funnel, it's going to start out with actual email marketing or SMS marketing as your core like messaging strategy to communicate with anybody that signs up on your website or SaaS platform, your email forms or email messages or your apps. You are collecting all those information, or you will collect information for that. And I think that is like your core. Then your first channel that you will learn is email marketing, email automation, or SMS marketing, or now they're categorizing it as conversation marketing. That's kind of like where I would start as your kind of like base layer of your first channel.
The data you actually own.
Yeah, the data that you actually own, which I still think it's like an undervalued. If you talk to like all these other like marketers out there, whether it be the marketing influencers and like the Gary Vee type of guys, they won't go for email marketing first. But then if you see the most successful marketers in Shopify sites and Ecomm sites and SaaS platforms and mobile apps, it does start with email and text, and maybe even Facebook chat or Messenger chat as well, as your kind of core funnel, because it's a very direct way of marketing and communicating to your customers, and the open rate and click-through rate like beats like any other platform bar none. Just imagine like your TikTok like conversion rate and click-through rates is like you have to generate a ton of traffic to actually get a ton of clicks. And it's a great outbound platform. But again, that goes into the later strategy of that's just an external channel that's funneling into your main funnel as well too.
You want to build that list. You want to be able to send an email out and know how much money is coming in off each email.
Now, they're good.
No, my question was veering off a little bit further is with the rented data. So let's just say like Facebook ads, you build out a lookalike audience, or you've accumulated enough data through advertising. How do you see, there's that recent Apple 14 update that may actually remove a lot of the backend pixel data that you're actually gathering or being able to remarket to them. How do you feel that's going to affect in the coming 2021 with a lot of these marketers that are just relying on that back end to kind of pick up all the pieces that were left behind by not having a good front end?
Yeah, it's been a challenge, especially with like the whole, we saw this whole challenge even hit with like the Facebook ads side of things with the whole, what was the data, Cambridge Analytica really messed it up for all the marketers. When they're talking about like the greatest hack or social hack out there, where like they were doing micro targeting through Trump ads and all these different things. I was like, man, we've been doing all these like data scraping and user ID scraping back then, and they just ruined it all for marketers. Can't have nice things anymore because it got ruined. It got ruined because of politics. So I was like, this is nothing new. Like all these like viral ad campaigns and bots and all these different things. I think that's where it goes back to kind of like evolving, where again, from what we've seen like this, even like the past like 2 years plus, or I should say 4 years of heavy regulation on especially like Facebook ads. They're just taking away more data for marketers to do a lot of retargeting. That just goes now emphasizes why you really need to own your own lists and your own data and your own platforms now, where you're on borrowed time now off because of these Facebook ads and these even Apple ads or iOS ads, because they're giving you less and less data, and they're going to try to charge you more to get more precise data now. And so I think that they still work now, and they'll still work after the update. I think that with every new update, I've seen this a lot in SEO, especially like SEO new updates. They always like push away a lot of marketers. But I always say this is the ones that stay are going to get all the business and going to thrive, because the other marketers can't figure it out. So every new change and update is painful, But if you figure out how to crack it through experimentation and try to just, play the system, unless the system itself is just like a complete dead wall, then I think that there's still a massive opportunity despite restrictions
I think
because of
the goal
regulation and everything else.
is owning the data. Obviously, like let's say text messages, email, owning that data, accumulating that, and intentional marketing intent as well. But you can't have everything in one bucket. And we saw what happened when instant articles came out, and all these companies just lost everything.
Oh
Because
yeah,
all their
yeah.
traffic was going straight through.
Yep.
Definitely.
And so things are evolving in that way. So now it's becoming more complex at a higher end game level where you can't rely on a single channel anymore for any business out there. Sometimes a social media platform dries up. Sometimes Facebook ads become super expensive or dries up. So you do have to have a multi-channel or omni-channel approach eventually in your game plan. If one channel is just working really well for you, start pulling out a small percentage of your extra spend and experiment on a new channel to try to unlock new platforms and new places. So now you're just trying to like be more well-rounded, just in case like Facebook ads just spike up during Christmas, then you still have other places to kind of generate your own traffic and audiences. One other thing that I'll add on to that too is evolving from actually owning your lists is kind of a shoot off of that is starting to think of how to build your own assets or media brands in a way that, a good example is like HubSpot. They have HubSpot, the SaaS platform, but HubSpot started buying out all these marketing article websites and influencer websites that look like, like your typical like Marketing Land or like marketing, like whatever, like website out there. But behind the scenes, HubSpot is starting to own or is owning some of those properties because those are traffic and eyeballs that they can control now and own. And so I think that brands are starting to look into, or actually they have been doing that, where they are creating these different social media brands and assets and newsletters and different things that are just not 100% directly related to like their brand, but is just attracting their audience. So let's say like your REI, then you're just going to create like a full news site and content tutorials just on like hiking and like a very like content driven that is consumer focused. And then they start owning that property. Because if you think about it, the only other flip side is that you then, instead of you building your own property and asset, then you're giving like $10,000 to an influencer instead to just like shill your company. What if you took that 10,000 instead and just build your own website and brand, instead of like paying all these influencers every single time? You hire your own in-house influencer and you start creating your own content. Now, I'm not saying don't throw away influencer marketing. Influencer marketing is still good in tandem, but I think that if you want to save more money long term and have your own kind of like own growth engine, that you're generating your own traffic at that point that costs you next to nothing, then you want to start thinking of building your own like different.
This is
like,
exactly, yes, I agree, man. Because so I've had this debate with my partner, my buddy, our CEO, our company, that we need an in-house superhero mascot. Like that's what we need. That's the influencer we need. Well, we used to be called Zyral, and I was like, yo, we need Zion Man, a superhero influencer. And then we just rebranded as Revy. So now I'm like, yo, we need the Rev Ranger. So Eugene Johnson, if you're listening to this, Justin agrees with me. We need that in-house influencer, aka a superhero. That's at least what I took away from that. I could be way off, but I don't think I'm too far off. Justin, I wanted to ask you, so with all these skills, and so you started kind of back to your storyline here, you started doing marketing for all these random businesses in your area. Where was that inflection point where you went from being just some guy offering free services to speaking on stages with Larry King and whatnot?
Yeah, so well, that's where like for me, I started spending like the past like I'd say like 10 years before I started doing like public speaking, just really like honing in my marketing skill sets and craft, like staying behind the scenes in the background, building up actual case studies. After I started, like when I first started out, I was messing with all these different industries. But then I just started noticing that my issue at that point was lack of focus and just like dedicating myself to like a specific path. And at that point, that's when I just started to go in on, this is like probably around 2016 and 17. I wanted to just build my own SaaS company and just do SaaS marketing because I was just growing SaaS businesses and consulting for SaaS businesses left and right. I was like, well, why not just try to grow and build my own? And so at that point, I just started to be more intentful on like the industry I wanted to focus on. And just, again, like just if I'm going in SaaS, then I'm just going to go 100% in SaaS at that moment. And then if I do switch to something else later on, then I can kind of just shift gears. But at least I like my intent and focus is on there. What ended up happening at that time when I started to build my own personal brand and started speaking on different events and stages, like I just started seeing kind of like the rise of personal brands kind of take off. And I really studied, I give a lot of credit to just reading a lot of like Gary Vee books and videos, and really got motivated to start really building my own brand and just started getting out there. I had this like big fear of like public speaking and talking. And even just like pointing a camera at myself and shooting content, because like I'm more of an introvert, more leaning towards an introvert, and I just never had the skill sets of actually getting in front of the actual audiences and crowds. But what I ended up doing was just started to just shoot some content, and 10 people saw it, grew up to like 20 people, and every single day I was just shooting videos nonstop, and I kept rewatching all my videos, seeing all the mistakes I was doing. Like, is my face in full frame? Am I centered? Am I saying too much? Am I speaking coherently? Do I have structure when I talk? And I just started to keep watching every single video. So I did video like for like a whole year basically. And every single time, every video that I did previous to that, I watched what I did and I wrote notes on like how I should improve that. So I was like very rapidly like growing and improving my content. Yeah, they are data driven and building my own content. And I saw the numbers and the views and the engagement grow gradually as I was improving my content.
And this is post the SaaS company?
This was during this SaaS company. So what ended up happening was Snapchat started taking off at that point, and that's when Gary Vee was just like, start building your personal brand on Snapchat. And at that point, I just started snapping every single day of business talks, and my snaps were like 10 to 15 minutes a day full of content. And that's a lot of snaps if you think about it. Because snaps are like 10 to like 15 seconds max. But I was like, okay, let's do this experiment. Gary Vee pushed all these like business influencers and business professionals into Snapchat, but nobody is actually delivering actual business content natively in Snapchat. So screw it, let's bring YouTube inside of Snapchat. And at first, people were like saying, "Oh, my videos are too long." Well, I was like, "You can skip through my videos. You don't have to watch it." And what I saw with the stats was that a lot of people were initially skipping my videos, but then once I started delivering it very consistently, and I was delivering like long, like 15 minute videos, I saw like the most like engaged viewers, like the core group of viewers, just like consistently stack up. Fast forward a little bit more, I was like only one of the few people that was posting marketing videos on Snapchat. Then some people like on Medium, Wall Street Journal kind of picked it up and just wrote a list of top like people, business professionals to follow on Snapchat. And it was like Gary Vee, Grant Cardone, Ty Lopez, and then they put me on that list somehow.
Wow.
Then I just saw my first kind of like growth hack spike at that point.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Go.
And so then still at that point, though, I wasn't really speaking as much on different conferences and stages. Then I was like, you know what? Like, screw it. I'm going to create my own event. I'm going to create my own stage. So then that's when I created my own growth hacking and growth marketing conference called Stacking Growth in LA. And I just rounded up all my marketer friends, came up with the idea in a week, called out a date in 2 weeks, and had 200 people show up inside of one of my friend's house. He had a big house, so we just packed this house with like 200 seats, and we just hosted our first conference there. So at that point, it's just like I knew that like public. I just started reverse engineering what a personal brand is, and it's just a lot of it is just social proof, and a lot of it is building up a community and building a content. So I was like, you know what, like why am I gonna try to chase all these like big conferences when I can just create my own platform and build my own social proof and put myself in kind of like the center of all the networking connections. And then that just ended up kind of being taking on its own.
Yeah,
Building
becoming
out
your
their own
own,
community.
becoming
Yeah.
your own in-house influencer as opposed to leveraging the external influencers. Like,
hmm
I'm
And
noticing
then,
patterns here.
yeah, and then so then everything that I've done so far, it's like I don't really like public speaking. I really don't like uh, kind of like being kind of like this content creator and influencer as like that's not my main like career path per se. But what I knew from a growth perspective is that if I can be in the center of awareness or attention, then all the networking and dots will just connect back to me. So it's a very scaled way for me to, instead of me going to um, speak at like a conference and event, that's only going to, like if there's 100 people watching, at max is maybe going to be like up to 100 people connecting. But if I recorded my talk of me talking on stage and then uploaded it online, I hit a much more massive and larger scale.
Sure.
So at that point, like again, like I would just speak at my own meetups and events, or speak at another meetup. I might have bombed that event. So then all I did was just took a picture that I spoke at this event. I didn't record it, but then that just gave me social proof that I was speaking at an event, right?
Sure.
And then at the
Fuck
next stage, then I just started stair-stepping way to bigger and bigger external events outside of my own event. Again, like even if an event is really small or a conference is really small, if you just deliver a really great talk and you give yourself a stage, or you go on a small event and record yourself, nobody's looking at how big the crowd is.
Right.
So as long as you're delivering, then that recorded piece of video and content will do so well for you in terms of your portfolio or your personal brand portfolio.
Hell yeah.
So I just kept compounding that, just step my way to like bigger events and bigger conferences. And then at that point, then I was just starting getting like natural inbound, like people were inviting me for all these different events to come speak at that point. And then I started just also reaching out to the events that I wanted to. And I had enough proof that I was important enough to speak at those events and stages.
Now that you've been on our podcast, man, that's pretty much the intro to anywhere in the world, you know?
Yeah, it's end games are here. Exactly.
Sure. So, damn, bro. So we've blown past the hour. We haven't even got to the blockchain yet.
No worries.
I'm like torn in between just asking you to come back and like diving into that a little bit. We'll edit this part out. How are you doing on time? Are you in a rush or?
No, I'm good too, and I'm always down to do part 2 later on too. We could dive a little more deeper, and I didn't mean to like kind of dive in deep into.
No, dude, I'm fascinated.
Yeah.
You essentially put a science to everything I'm trying to accomplish right now. So it's like, oh, there's like a roadmap for this. That's great. I'm over here.
Yeah,
going by feel.
That's been my way of being able to just jump through a social platform super fast, or jump into a channel that I have no experience in doing. So I think that what I've learned really fast was just being able how to study and learn how to learn, if that makes sense. And I think that there's a great book from Tim Ferriss. I think Tim Ferriss is the guy that I really look into. He talks about that. He teaches how to learn about the learning process itself. And if you look at, he has a book called Tools of Titans.
Yep.
You want to study like all like the greatest minds, like how do like Ivy League people study? And there's actually an approach to how they learn and how they're able to like quickly blitz through a topic super fast. You don't necessarily have to be an expert in all these different topics, but what they've done very well is that they actually have a plan in place that allows them to approach a topic in a very fast, experimental or data-driven way. And that lets them be able to systematically get the skill sets and go through this really fast. So
funny, I just watched a video of his last night where he was going through his writing process, how he writes. And
it's very systematic and methodical. And I think that that's super smart what he's done. And he taught himself how to like speak a foreign language. He broke it down. He just started like going into these skills that he has no like business like learning. But because he was able to break it down, I think that that's something that I learned inadvertently. And I think that's also a good, necessary, like critical thinking skill set that any professional in any industry should just pick up and learn. But especially for marketing, because we are so distracted by, again, like all these different channels and these like latest trends or these different algorithm changes that are pulling us in like hundreds of different directions at the same time. We have to be very fast in adapting on how technology and marketing and the landscape is changing as well.
Hell yeah, man. So what happened to that SaaS company? You sold it for $1 billion exit?
No. It died in its way.
What was the product? I didn't even ask you. Was it digital marketing services?
So the product that I wanted to build was, and I still want to build it to this day, I just don't think it was properly executed. I was trying to build an all-in-one marketing tool that was like HubSpot and Hootsuite combined together. So it was taking more of a Hootsuite approach to like email marketing and MailChimp. I said MailChimp approach to how MailChimp made email marketing super simple. So we were trying to build this all-in-one marketing automation platform for the solo entrepreneur, solo founder, or small team startup, because we saw that all the tools like HubSpot and all these other Marketo and all these tools were for corporations or enterprises, right? And the challenge these days is that currently, and still to this day, marketing is super fragmented because of the tools and the channels and the data. And there's just no tool that has been interacting or combines that all into a single place. Like you have to go to just manage your social media. You might have to go to like Buffer, then do your email marketing. You have to go to MailChimp. Then you have to have like a separate analytics dashboard. So what we were trying to build at that time was a very simplified tool that just was a little bit more like a Buffer meets like a landing page tool to start. And then we were just adding channels as we go. But that ended up being like a really huge feat where if you look at like HubSpot went to like probably like Series G or something funding. Like it was, we bit off too much than we could chew, and we weren't making enough revenue to sustain the forward development that we wanted to do. The only other way was
how much did you guys raise?
We raised 1.5 million. Yeah, which was good, but the other rookie mistake that I had too was falling into this like the Silicon Valley trap, where in that like Y Combinator and all these other big accelerators, they keep telling you that you have to have your dev team in house, and you have your whole dev team. And I think that you could have a lead dev team, a lead developer in your thing, but I think that you can go remote. And this was like before remote was like super trendy back then.
Yeah.
You know, when you applied to like all these big startups and investors are like, you need to have an in-house team. So what ended up happening was that we burned a lot of cash flow trying to build a developer team, dev team in LA. I'd say that's the biggest mistake, is building a dev team in LA. I would never do it ever again. LA, I don't believe that developer talent in LA is.
I was going to say they have developers in LA.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'd say that was like if anything, that was like the biggest learning lesson that I learned, that all our LA investors wanted us to like keep it in house and keep it in LA and open up the Venice Beach office.
You're talking LA investors, you're talking dev teams in LA. I think you might have set up the wrong ecosystem for what you were trying to accomplish.
Exactly. Whereas like for me, like, and that was like the big disconnect that I learned from there, is like I wanted to just do like get developers like elsewhere, and do it so differently. So like a lot of our burn rate was mismanaged because of that. And we were always chasing the next fundraising round, and these VCs will tell us to go these different directions. And then we would accomplish it, but it was still like, it wasn't enough to get it to a sustained rate. So it was learning lessons there.
For sure, man.
To do. Would I build a startup again? Yeah, I would, but later on.
Startup life is not for the faint of heart by any means.
Unless
you're a one-man startup like Justin here, who has every skill set to run the thing. So what are some final points on growth hacking? How about this? What are the most relevant points on growth hacking in today? Because you told us a lot about what you kind of learned coming up, and so in today's world, what are If I'm the founder of a company right now, what are some things I should be considering that I'm probably not even thinking about because my level of awareness just isn't there?
Yeah, I'd say that first is the biggest thing with working with other founders and being a founder myself is the mistake that we are when we're going out and trying to hire a growth hacker or a growth marketer or a first marketing lead is we don't identify like what is our like real growth metric that we're trying to accomplish. If you are a seed stage and an early company, then your growth metrics should be, and you're trying to fundraise more, then honestly, your growth metric is trying to find out what are the user signups or customer revenue or sales revenue you need to get to the next milestone, if that is your goal. If you're running an e-com business, you're trying to sell more and increase your average revenue per customer, your average sales, and then your monthly over sales too. That's like another metric that you want to outline and beat. So I think that sitting down, I think that actually the tip that I would have is that we're so caught up in the actual execution and hustling of business. We don't spend enough time planning and thinking systematically of what we're trying to do and what we need to do at all the steps ahead of us. If we have a clear path with whatever we're trying to accomplish or do, and we spend the time on the front end to think of how we get there, then we can measure in between whether we hit that goal or not. And if we don't hit that, and we see that we don't hit that milestone or that growth metric, then we go back to the drawing board and see what didn't work or what we should have changed in between. So I think that planning and building a process of your growth and your growth metric is key. And I think that we don't spend enough time doing that when it comes to like hustling and just trying to execute.
Would you say a good counterweight to that though is also don't spend all of your time planning to where you never actually get around to doing anything? Because I've totally seen that too.
Oh yeah. And I think that comes back down to just sitting down, identifying what is the immediate growth metric that you're trying to accomplish, and then just like different stages of the way. It's just like something that's like weekly, monthly, quarterly to yearly. The goal with growth hacking and just growing fast is being able to iterate and move fast. So you actually have to execute to be able to identify whether your campaigns or whatever you're building will achieve the growth that you need or whatever path whatever campaign you're executing. So yeah, don't be in so much analysis paralysis where you're just sitting around and planning too much. Just what I would say though in the planning is go with it with a very lean startup. Take your marketing with the same approach as a lean startup approach, where you're just trying to find the most MVP growth metric, a minimum viable product, minimum viable growth that you need to achieve to get to the next stage of whatever you're trying to achieve. And if you don't even know what you're trying to achieve, then that's where you have to answer that before you try to do anything. Otherwise, you're just throwing darts and just hoping that something sticks, which can work, but it's a very shotgun approach that has no aim, and you're just like trying to like hope things happen, and usually stuff doesn't work that way.
And you're slamming people into brick walls, and we talked about earlier.
Yeah, or you're burning cash, and like it's a waste. It's a waste.
Hell yeah.
So I'd say that's kind of like the best tip that I'd say is just like you got to think a little bit slower, but execute fast.
Let's go. Love it.
Yeah.
We can go ahead and leave it right there then for this segment. So now that you know how to be a growth hacker, go out there and use all these skills that Justin has taught you, distilled into 1 hour that he's learned in 15 years, and go out there and make amazing shit happen. But stay tuned. We will be having Justin back because his other expertise is all things blockchain, crypto, decentralized financing. We know you want to hear all about that. But this guy's an encyclopedia of knowledge, so we definitely want to dedicate an entire episode to that. So stay tuned for the next one. Appreciate y'all listening in. Justin, thank you for being around this time. We can't wait to have you back. And with that, we will call it an episode. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day, night, evening, whatever it is. We'll holler at you later. Peace.